Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm your co-host, Kevin, K-Daddy from the Dirty South, the ATL, Hotlanta, Georgia. I'm a post-production master, filmmaker, and horror nerd.
Hey guys, this is your co-host Ashley, Gorilla Girl filmmaker, lunar goddess, and cinephile.
And I'm your co-host, John Thomas, ghost hunter, super smartass, and film lover extraordinaire.
What's up, my warlocks and witches? In today's podcast, we're going to be talking about, you guessed it, witchcraft and sorcery. Is witchcraft real, or is it all just a little bit of hocus pocus? Tune in and find out. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Cinematic, captivating, terrifying, and intense. Trap 2021 will return live May 21st through the 23rd. New categories, new prizes, and still no entry fee. Visit trapfilmfestival.com for more information.
What is up, my witches and coven? All right, what is witchcraft? It's the use of sorcery and magic, and there are so many things that can fall under the umbrella of what a witch is, and I feel like we should just start off with the traditional witch, and I want to just ask, what do you guys first think of when you hear the term witch?
I automatically think of the image of the witch flying on a broomstick, like the traditional Halloween image.
With a big pointy hat?
Yep.
What about you, John?
Pretty much the same thing, except for the witch from the Wizard of Oz. Green face, all that ugliness. Yeah.
How rude.
I mean, not all witches are ugly, obviously.
So did you know that the traditional image of the witch on the broomstick was actually supposed to be symbolism of the broom symbolizing female like domesticity, so like the woman cleaning the home with the broom, but it also was representative of a phallic symbol. So really it was this symbolism of a witch being overtly like super hypersexual. This idea of femininity and domesticity gone wild.
Oh, I didn't know that. And like the big pointy hat. So back in 1600s and around that time, there was whenever they'd have like big festivals and big gatherings and whatnot, they would actually use big pointy hats like that to be able to stand out from the crowd to where you would know where to go to get certain goods and certain things. And so it was eventually used to portray witches because people would go to these people for spells and incantations and ways to quote unquote better their lives or change their lives. And so it's used as a way of, hey, you're trying to find this person? They're right there. You can easily find them out in a crowd.
Just based on that.
And the cauldrons too, for a lot of the herbal medicines and whatnot.
And I like how it was the reverse over time, because you had like the cauldron became the scary, boil, toil and trouble. And then you have the reverse with like the witch on the broomstick symbolism, because initially it represented, the broomstick between a woman's legs. It was both a sexual and like spiritually deviant meaning. And then now it's this innocent, Halloween symbolism that we see everywhere.
Oh, the changes of symbolism. What do you guys think about the quick conclusions that people jump to for witchcraft? Somebody could give somebody a root and that could cure like a toothache. And someone might see that as this magical remedy and be like, that person's a witch. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of the history of accusing based off of ignorance?
I don't think it's accusing based off of ignorance. I think there's a bigger scope to this, and it's actually been researched in anthropology. So oftentimes we see the phenomenon of witchcraft accusations emerging in a response to changes in society and challenges. So like when something bigger is occurring that people feel a lack of control in, whether it be from the church feeling a lack of control over the country, or even modern day, it still happens in other countries, believe it or not, where children are accused of witchcraft. And it's like because famine and poverty and stuff like that. So things people can't give a direct correlation to, or they want to create fear and control over their masses. It's really easy to blame something that has no foundation and proof, right? Like, how can you prove magic? Obviously, we can't because it hasn't been proven yet. And so I think it just depends what time period you're looking at.
Yeah.
It would depend on the why. But specifically, I guess if you go back when we first see the mass accusations and trials and executions, which was between 1482 and 1782 in Europe, that's 40 to 50,000 people accused of witchcraft and executed. Around that time, you have to look at what's going on in Europe. Well, you're seeing the control of the church, right? And poverty and famine and things like that are also arising. People are unsettled and they're unhappy. Now, when the masses become unhappy and unsettled, what do? You divide them, you turn them on each other, right? So that those that are in power can still stay in power. We see that time and time again. Even now in politics, right? You divide and then they can't rise up against you. So how did they do it back then? Well, you have witchcraft accusations, people accusing each other and turning on each other. And back then, 40 to 50,000 people were hung.
Yeah.
That was the method of executing witches. And I think that actually the accusations began as early as the 1300s. But the big executions, like the mass accusations, weren't until the late 1400s.
Yeah, I think it was in the 15 that is the height of the executions as well, because of the Crusades and
that's when they made it law.
Yep.
When they were able to actually officially make it a crime under law is when you see the big accusations and the ability to sweep through town after town and just mass executions. I think it first became a law, like a crime under law in 1542, and it was renewed twice after that. So people were really feeling that law.
Creating terror and hatred.
Did you know that during the European witch hunt, 70 to 80% of those accused were female, except in Moscow? In Moscow, male witches outnumbered women 7-3.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that.
And then in Normandy, the accusations for male to female were 3-1.
Oh, wow.
Kind of interesting to see, like there were pockets where there was just a different correlation. Now, did you know why women were the accused more so than the male?
Not off the top of my head, no. It's been a while.
It's rooted in theology. This is like that same notion that, Eve was weak and gave into temptation before Adam and she led Adam astray. Well, this is very similar where women were believed to be morally and spiritually weaker than men. So they were considered the weaker of the sexes in terms of their spiritual strength and the ability to say no to the devil. So we just can't say no to the devil.
Say no to the devil.
We just don't say no. We love us some Satan.
Woo, Satan.
And witches were considered to be followers of Satan, who had traded their souls for his assistance. So it's pretty straightforward in terms of what people were accused of. That concept followed into the Salem witch trials. And Salem witch trials actually didn't begin for 90 years after when it was in its prime in Europe. They went from February 1692 to May 1693?
That's interesting.
February 29th, 1692, the first warrant was issued for the arrest of Sarah Good.
Yes.
The arrest warrants were issued for Tituba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne. March 1st is when they started examining them. But when we talk about Salem witch trials, we're not just referencing when the court date started. First accusation was made and the arrest warrant was issued and they were arrested on February 29th, 1692, and all hell broke loose. What was it? More than 200 people were accused, 30 found guilty?
More than 200 accused, 30 found guilty, and 12 were executed.
19 executed.
Was it 19? It was 12.
14 were women, 5 were men.
Oh, shit. I quit.
I quit. You can't quit.
One man during the trials, Giles Corey, was actually pressed to death for refusing to plead. And at least 5 others died during their time in jail.
That would be the worst way to go, I think. How they would put the plank of wood over them and then slowly add one rock on top of them at a time to slowly add weight.
Oof.
And eventually just
squish.
Oh. No, thank you.
That was dark.
I know. The last known execution for witchcraft actually occurred in Switzerland in 1782.
Dang.
That's a long time. If you think about it, that was not that long ago in the grand scope of history that someone was accused of being a witch and executed.
This just got sad.
It's got really sad. Let's change the topic. So let's talk about modern witches.
What's her boss?
Modern witch, the modern acceptance of witchcraft and the emergence of different witches. So this is where we see the branching away from traditional witchcraft ideas and definitions, right? We're no longer dealing with making deals with the devil. Now, that's not to say that still doesn't exist. I'm sure there's a branch of witchcraft out there that still believes in making deals with all sorts of things out there. But it's become something much bigger than that.
With modern witchcraft, I like how it ties to traditional Wiccan as well, where it's tapping into the elementals, like, honoring and worshiping like the earth, the fire, the water, the sky,
Air.
air.
Yes.
I love that aspect of where modern witchcraft has gone to.
I mean, isn't it just going back to its roots? It's just now embracing the title of witchcraft. It's deviated from the definition that was placed upon it by external sources, using that to divide people.
Like the fear mongering.
And going back to the original roots of herbal elemental connection to the earth, connection to elements around us and energy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like changing and it's becoming something. I think it's just reverting back to what it originally was at its purest form. There's many, many branches out there, many different types.
Oh yeah, so many.
One of the things that has always drawn me towards Wiccan versus like standard Christianity is the dualism of Wicca, and where it's kind of viewed as a yin and a yang element versus just a one deity that's being worshipped, because they have the goddess and then the horned god, and it's seen as this balance. They worship one or the other in a different for different things, and I've always liked that element. It's embracing the two sides of the coin versus just saying this is the one, this is the good side, this is the bad.
See, to me, I think that's just another form of religion. It's still worshiping an entity or entities, but now instead of one, it's two. And that's not to say it's bad. I just see it as being the same. I see it as the same. It's still worshiping something,
Right.
A horned god and a divine goddess. There's now two. And then you have like an, Hindu, you have many gods as well. And you have, like, for me, it's just no different than any other religion,
Sure.
worshiping an entity and doing ritual ceremonies. Whether you want to call it, Wiccan ritual ceremony. I mean, you have that too in Catholicism, where they're doing these intricate, elaborate masses to praise saints and to praise the Virgin Mary and God and Jesus. And it's just like, to me, it's all these different things and people doing very similar things, but just in their own creative ways.
Sure. And I agree with you 100% on that. And let me just say, I'm an atheist, or agnostic rather, across the board.
You just talked about worshiping a horned god and a divine goddess. How is that atheistic?
No, I was saying that within the Wiccan theology, rather, it's they, as a root, worship a goddess and a horned god. They worship a yin and yang balance of deities.
So does Catholicism. They worship the Virgin Mary and God and Jesus Christ. They worship a Holy Trinity. So the sacred feminine, they worship the Sacred Mother. You can disagree, but they do worship a Sacred Mother.
They do.
They do worship the masculine God.
They do.
They may not like hearing this.
They do. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it in a different yin and yang, I guess. Like, instead of masculine and feminine, I'm seeing it as a light and a dark.
John just shakes his head.
I don't know.
Speak on it, John. Speak on it.
I don't even know. I can't even help you, Kevin. Sorry. I understand where you're both coming from, but yeah. I'm not very well versed in all the different religions there, so...
Let me just say this though really quick. Like, I completely hear where you're coming from, Ash, and I'm enjoying having this conversation with you, and I like being able to take it in and hear, like, being able to expand like how I was seeing things and how you're seeing things, and being able to combine the two, which I feel like a lot of people need to do, not just in religion, but just life in general, be able to hear multiple different takes on a subject.
That's important. But I'm not trying to break down Wiccan philosophy or Christianity or Catholicism or any of that. For me, it's more so, instead of highlighting the differences, embracing the similarities.
There's so many similarities.
Yeah, recognizing there's so many similarities. People at the root of it are trying to connect to something greater than themselves. Whatever they're finding to connect to that speaks to them specifically, great. That's awesome. As long as it's not hurting others, like witchcraft hunts. That's
That's a big
bad.
no.
Yeah, that's bad.
Burn them all.
All right, Mr. Spanish Inquisition.
So Something I've always thought about religions, be it Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism,
Wicca.
everything. Just go down the list. A rose is a rose to a degree. Like there's so many similarities, and at the height of it, there's a lot of similar things that people are going for. Like you said, trying to find something greater than themselves. The details may be slightly different, be it one deity, two deities,
10 or 15.
or 100.
Or none.
Yeah, or none. Like the process of finding something that speaks to you and then it's higher than yourself. And I feel like that's the base of all those theologies. Totally digress from witchcraft.
No, I think it's actually absolutely pertinent to it.
One thing I did find that was interesting was centuries ago, a group of witches called the Coven. In story, there was a quarterly gathering of the covens once a season, and those they actually dubbed to be Sabbaths, which I thought was ironically funny, just because Sabbath is also a Jewish word for a gathering.
Well, a lot of people equate Wiccan, witchcraft, and paganism all together, when in reality, they're all very different things. Paganism was just a broad term used back in the Middle Ages or after the Middle Ages. It was used to be applied to any unfamiliar religion. And at its base, the term just presumed a belief in a false god. So anything that wasn't the accepted religion was considered paganism.
And we have accepted a lot of that into Christianity of today. Hashtag Christmas trees and Yule logs.
Yes, we have. We have blended it in.
Which is hilarious.
But it's interesting because a lot of people put their own belief on the definition of paganism and what they attribute to paganism and pagan history and pagan theology. So it's in reality, it was just a term used originally to lump in anybody who wasn't, that dominant Christian religion. It's like, that's a lot of umbrellaing we're doing there.
My way or the highway, folks.
Yup. I do like once witchcraft became accepted as not something that's inherently wicked or evil or automatically tied to Satan. You had many different things emerge and many subsets within it. And I found some interesting ones, actually. I had automatically assumed a green witch was someone who worked with like the herbs. All the stuff you would assume is green forest and herbs. But even within that, there's like even more, there's the hedge witch. There's the kitchen cottage witch. There's the green witch. And it's just like, holy moly, what does that all mean? And I find that really interesting because there's so many different types out there and it's become really accepted. Like you can look on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and there's like happy books out there. Like they look like recipe books and it's like the Green Witch's recipe book, the Green Witch's cookbook, the Green Witch's guide to self-care, the Green Witch's guide to spa. And it's just like, holy moly, it's a trend. It's a thing.
The kitchen cottage witch, that's probably where I would identify the most because I can't get out of the kitchen.
Kevin likes to bake.
The kitchen cottage witch.
I like food.
Yeah, it's they believe the house is the most sacred space and they do magic around the hearth and the home.
I agree with that.
Use of herbs for protection, prosperity, and healing. They often follow more than one path of witchcraft. So the kitchen cottage witch tends to do other forms of witchcraft.
I would totally be a kitchen cottage witch. I like my home.
Now, the hedge witch, they practice magic alone and work more with the green arts. So herbal cures and spells, they typically provide assistance for curing illnesses. So that's taking us back to like our original witches, right? Who were accused of being in league with Satan and they were likely not. What I find fascinating, so fascinating about the hedge witch, that's a Western term, right? That's something that has emerged here. But what else does that definition sound like?
Sounds like a medicine man.
A medicine man. And in the Mexican culture, we have what are called curanderas.
Ooh.
And they is a very special word. So we have a word for witch, which is bruja, not the same thing as a curandera. A curandera is someone who provides remedies for all types of ailments. And I actually grew up around that kind of stuff. So ailments for nightmares, ailments for body aches and pains, like growing pains, but also ailments for like stomach aches and just like you name it. You have a headache, we have an ailment for, or, a cure for that. And my grandma actually did a lot of this stuff. Because I grew up in the US, like I was born here, I grew up here, I was exposed to our pop culture, I automatically thought my grandma was a witch.
No.
And so I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I would go to school telling my friends, my grandma's a witch. Did you know my grandma's a witch? She does witchcraft. And I got in trouble for telling tales at school.
Of course.
And I'm like, no, my grandma's really a witch. She does witchcraft. She does things. I've seen her do her magical concoctions and spells and potions. And then I got in so much trouble for telling tall tales. And reality, now that I'm an adult, is like she's putting together natural remedies.
Yeah.
Herbal remedies, like it's a Hispanic medicine woman. She's a curandera. But it's not just remedies, because they put a red string and crack an egg on their forehead. And that's going to take the nightmares away. Because to us, it's tied into the supernatural as well. It's not just a physical element. Oftentimes, the physical elements are manifestations of a supernatural source. So nightmares are attacks from spirits or, demons or stuff like that. So it's like, well, we got to do this exorcism. And it's just like, oh my goodness. Seriously, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. I remember when we were little, my brother, he's only 2 years younger than me. He was having just nightmares after nightmares for weeks. And my grandma's like, it's the devil trying to get to him. We have to handle this. So she called this group of curanderas together, not to be confused with the coven. They came over, they laid my brother on a bed, and they started praying over him. They put a red string on him, and they were doing like these prayers, and he's scared because he's little. And so he starts crying. He tries to leave, so they hold him down on the bed to continue praying. And I run in, seeing my brother being held down on the bed crying. And so I start screaming at them, and then they think that Satan's trying to get to them through me. And it's a whole nightmare of like chaos. And to me as an adult now, I'm like, that is hilarious. Of course, I would be the Satan child trying to come in and destroy their, exorcism of my brother.
Makes sense to me.
And it, like I said, some of it was really just based in herbal remedies. So she grew peppermint plants and aloe plants and would do an aloe remedy teas and peppermint teas and blending of teas to help with like stomach illnesses or fevers and stuff like that. And it works.
Right.
Like they work. If you have a problem, grandma wants to try it first before you go get pharmaceuticals, which I'm all about it, because side effects from Big Farm.
Right.
Let's try the natural cure first.
Right. I actually dated somebody who was more into all the natural medicine and stuff like that. And I had a cold one time that just would not go away. And she had this, I don't even know what it was, but it was disgusting. It's like just a little drop of it underneath your tongue once or twice a day. That shit was gone.
Took it away.
And it was disgusting. Oh, it tasted so gross. I was like, I can't.
Yeah, it's never tasty.
It's never good.
No, and it looked gross too. It was just gross.
Aloe tea is not tasty, by the way. Literally an aloe leaf boiled in water and you drink it. Oh,
Nope.
nope, indeed.
Like I take St. John's wort as part of helping with depression.
Yep, I remember.
And like high anxieties. It works amazing. And recently I started doing turmeric for inflammation, and that helps tremendously.
And now we know Kevin's getting old. Just kidding.
Ouch.
I'm older than you. It's okay. No, I used to take St. John's wort as well. That stuff stinks.
Oh, it's horrible.
But it helps. It does help. It really does.
And Ash, can you say the name again of
The curandera?
the curandera?
Like a CU, curandera.
Oh, okay. Curandera. Do you think that can tie into the idea of the hereditary witch at all?
Good old hereditary witch.
Absolutely. The hereditary witch could be. Now, I jokingly will set my grandma off and call her a witch because she gets so offended by that, because a witch is something very different in our culture. So,
Sure.
Because at least where I'm from in Texas, a witch is oftentimes used in association with like black magic. So a person who is practicing hexes and curses and self-gaining type things. So a curandera is more of a healing person. So if you call a curandera a witch, you're going to set them off. But they do train the generations below them. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily a gift, because it's more healing remedies that can be done by anybody, but it's passed through generations. So it tends to be a very specific person who has taken the time to learn these remedies and to make sure they're not going to overdose somebody on some kind of plant. there is a belief that gifts do pass in our tradition from family lines.
Mhm.
And so I do think that, to your point, the hereditary witch could come into play there, because there are some rituals that would take a specific gift, I believe. And honestly, through the bloodlines of like the grandchildren and I think the overall acceptance of witchcraft in our mainstream culture, and not just witchcraft, but shamanism and healing, alternative medicine healing, the grandchildren have really started to learn to embrace it and talk about it more. And so one of my cousins is actually training in shamanism, like actual traditional shamanism.
Oh, cool.
There's a predisposition to doing that. So it does make me wonder about hereditary gifts potentially being at play, because there does seem to be a predisposition, at least within my family lines, of people leaning towards natural healing. And there are some in my family who, haven't done these things and seem to have a natural inclination towards knowing intuitively what kind of plants to use and knowing how to use herbs and spices in a way that is more of a healing, curing kind of properties. I sound crazy.
Hey, Ash, I have a backache. Can you?
I am not one of them. Don't come to me for healing. I'm a tornado.
You're a tornado.
I'm a tornado. I am not a force for healing.
Ashley is a force of nature. Watch out.
And I love how hereditary is coming into a lot of modern day pop culture too, because there's a big one. There's a big one where hereditary witch plays into play.
Harry Potter?
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
Because most of the witches and wizards in that world stem from a lineage of a family of witches and wizards.
Well, we have to thank the Wizard of Oz for that. 80 years ago, if it wasn't for the Wizard of Oz introducing the concept of the good witch into mainstream pop culture, we wouldn't even be embracing Harry Potter. You got to thank your forefathers.
Thank you, the Wicked Witch of the West and the Wicked Witch of the East.
Yeah, don't forget Glinda. Come on.
And Glenda.
Glenda the Good Witch.
Good old Glinda.
Yeah, but because of Glenda the Good Witch, we were able to embrace characters like Samantha in the 1960s
Oh, yes.
Bewitched.
Good old Bewitched.
And they tailored that very well. They tailored that to the housewife.
Yeah.
Is it really a coincidence that the main character is a housewife trying to balance having a child, taking care of a busy working husband, and darn, managing witchcraft with their cute little nose twinkle?
Good old Bewitched.
I feel like we started from the older ages and worked our way down, because in the 80s, we actually had Teen Witch.
Oh, yeah. Teen Witch.
Fun little music, poppy Teen Witch.
Mhm.
And then you have the 90s with Sabrina, the Teenage Witch.
Yes.
Thank you, Archer Comics.
And then we get younger
Right.
with Harry Potter.
Also in the 90s, though.
Yep, late 90s.
Yeah.
Late 90s, we have that. And we also had in the 90s Practical Magic and
Yes.
Craft.
96 was The Craft. I can't remember what year Practical Magic came out. I think it was before that.
Mm-hmm.
The Craft. That was one of my favorite movies. I know it was geared toward females, but I absolutely loved it. We had a dollar theater here for a while, and they would get the movies after it had been in the regular theaters for a while, and they would, sell tickets for $1.50 or something like that. I must have watched that movie, I don't even know, 20 times. It just got me so interested in the whole occult thing, and it was just amazing. I don't know. I'm such a little girl, I guess, but I enjoyed it.
Well, that movie was definitely not for little girls.
No, it was rated R. It was supposed to be PG-13, but due to the actual witchcraft and stuff, they made it rated R, and that was the only reason. On set, they actually had an actual witch that would help them cleanse the set, help them with the rituals, even though they were made up ones. They just wanted to make sure that there was no actual anything going on magic-wise while they were there. So I thought that was interesting.
And how many of you actually attempted light as a feather, stiff as a board?
I did. Can't see me raising my hand, but I definitely did.
I did.
I still try it, so.
And did it work?
No, unfortunately not.
Nope.
And of course, it wasn't my fault. I blame the other person who wasn't believing enough, so.
Oh, nice. It's always somebody else's fault.
Their fault.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right, the next 3Haunted get together, we're gonna have to try it.
Light as a feather, stiff
Yes.
as a board. Let's
Yep.
try it
I
on
was
Kevin.
going to say,
He's the
yeah,
lightest.
maybe Kevin. I was going to say Ashley, but whatever.
I was gonna say Ashley.
Pinkies out, Kevin.
Pinky's out.
I have a big ass. That's gonna be hard to lift. Even if I am light as a feather, there's nothing light or feathery about my butt. Bubble butt. Bubble butt.
Going back to the craft, the actress Fairuza Balk that played Nancy is actually a Wiccan.
Mhm.
So she kind of helped go into some of that stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought so.
So that was interesting. I found that out. And the beach scene when they were invoking the spirit, the park ranger told them that the tide wasn't supposed to come in and that they were going to be okay to record and film. But the tide came in and wiped all the candles and everything just off the set and screwed it all up.
Oh no.
Yes, there was a colony of bats that appeared during filming and just followed them around wherever they were going. So they had a lot of spooky shit, their words, happen while they were recording and filming this movie. So interesting stuff to me.
Well, now when you're putting energy into the universe, calling things,
Exactly.
can you really be surprised when things answer?
Even if they're using fake, spells and all that. Yeah, no, exactly. That's why they had the Wiccan on board, just to make sure that everything was okay.
Obviously, she didn't do her job.
Apparently not, but hey, it makes for good stories, even though obviously we weren't there. But also going back into the whole putting things out there, there's the rule of three. What you put out comes back to you threefold.
Now, what does that fall under? Wiccan, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Don't put bad out there, otherwise it's going to come back to you 3 times as bad. As you see in the movie when they do the love spell for good old Skeet Ulrich's character. He just gets obsessed and crazy and yeah.
He loves spells.
Yeah, I think the introduction of the acceptance of New Age meta has really helped with the acceptance of the witchcraft as well, because we see kind of a hybridization of Wiccan spells that have now kind of been married to Native American traditions and become this New Age experience. You even see it with yoga in the modern Western culture. That's taking Hindu beliefs and marrying them with our own Native American kind of traditions, where we see sage cleansing and we see like crystal healing. And it's just stuff that would normally back in the day have been associated with witchcraft. It would have been umbrellaed in, is becoming a melting pot of practices and traditions. I mean, I'm a crystal fanatic myself, so, and I sage things for cleansing.
I was about to ask if either of you practice in crystals and saging. So I know I do.
I have some crystals. I definitely have some sage as well, and that kind of goes with the ghost hunting stuff as well. Saging, trying to cleanse the air, the energy.
Sure.
See, and some people actually find that offensive and they feel it's cultural appropriation because it's a Native American tradition. And so without knowing the full cultural aspect and complete tradition and ceremony around it, by just pulling that one piece and doing that, some people do feel it's cultural appropriation. And there's certain types of sage that are actually endangered right now because they have been harvested so much.
That is interesting. I didn't know that part.
Yeah. So they actually encourage people to not buy certain types of sage because it's only promoting that, I guess, eventual destruction of that resource.
Isn't it blue sage?
I thought it was white.
Yeah, I was thinking it was white too. But you find a lot of the white sage in the stores still, in the metaphysical stores. It's expensive depending on where you go, but yeah.
Basically, white sage is being harvested. And the hilarious part about that is white sage in its Native American tradition is actually not used for cleansing. It is a protection.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
The only true way to get the highly therapeutic oils from the tree that are used for protection is to let it rest on the forest floor to age for 4 to 10 years. So this is based in super sacred tradition. And you're supposed to be given this by the indigenous communities, by like a shaman who knows it's ready for use. So by being harvested and cut down prematurely, it's not even really carrying its sacred benefit that it's supposed to be used for. So it's that whole knowing only a third of the context and then using it as such, as though they're kind of doing something culturally different and helping them without truly understanding what they're doing.
That makes sense.
Very interesting.
depending who you are, just by saging, some people consider that witchcraft because it's not knowing the, origins of what people are doing. But by saging or cleansing, it's also kind of hurtful to Native American cultures because for so long they were banned from practicing their religious beliefs. And to then allow it because it's trendy is kind of like a slap in the face. Because people still ignore like the atrocities of what happened to Native Americans and how much is still happening to them, but still take things that are trendy, like look at me, I'm saging, or I'm using this abalone shell, and look at me go, I've got my feather and my wand. Like, so rude. We're talking about witchcraft, and that ties into all kinds of healing and shamanism, and being a shaman is trendy now. Seriously, if you just Google become a shaman, at least 30 will pop up on how to become a shaman. Someone who can afford to go live in Peru and dick around for 2 months and then shrug it off and come into, the US and sell it. Because that's what they're doing. They're selling it. I'm selling you something. I'm making this a commodity. Whereas in the actual cultures, how were shaman created? They're selected. It's a lineage. It's something special and sacred. So it's like a slap in the face.
The first auto-complete sentence was, become a shaman online. What?
What I tell you, like, it's a trend right now. It's a trend. People selling spirituality. Maybe it's an adaptation as we go through time, or maybe it's a way to make money off of people that are vulnerable and lost and searching for some kind of completion within themselves. A need to connect with something greater than ourselves and to feel connected to something external and to maybe also feel complete within. And people monetizing on that, shame, shame, shame.
Shame.
Get the shame bell out.
Doom on you.
Doom. It's just not right.
No.
Yeah.
I know we shouldn't place value judgments on people. Everybody needs to make a living and all that stuff, but
there's a difference between making a living and providing like a service coming from a pure intention versus exploiting people of like, hey, you want to be a shaman? Give me some money and here's a PDF.
Yes, that's the word. It's different when people are exploiting on the vulnerabilities of others. And a lot of this is exploitation. You're going to a third world country to completely take advantage of their culture and tradition based in thousands of years of tradition and bring it back over here and wash it of its tradition and culture and sell it to people that are vulnerable and feel in some kind of way. And I think that's awful. And I do hope that magic rule of 3 comes back.
Definitely.
But what do you guys think? Do you think witchcraft is real?
I think it can be. I mean, going back again to the 90s, I'm such a little girl. Watching that movie, I actually started studying some of the Wiccan stuff and trying to do spells on my own and stuff like that. Did they work? Maybe. I don't know. It could have just been pure luck. But I think it's the will and the attention of putting something out there to see if it happens. I don't know. So I kind of believe, but at the same time, I'm still waiting for that answer, I guess.
I just think witchcraft is something we create because we don't feel we can control the world around us. We oftentimes feel so powerless at our base, especially as kids. We want to fly. We want to be able to teleport and telepath and do all of the things because at our base, what is witchcraft used for? For personal gain, things we can't do ourselves. So it's like, man, if we had that magic pill or that magic spell, that would be great. Do I feel witchcraft is real? Not in terms of being able to telepathically move things or fly or levitate, anything like that. Do I feel that natural herbal healing is real? Absolutely. I do believe in energetic manifestations of things, whether it be spiritual attacks or even things that we don't necessarily know about, like other entities. I know, Kevin, you call them elementals that exist outside of humanity. And so I do think there's a whole world out there that might be lumped into witchcraft that exists, but there are certain things I think do not exist or are not capable within witchcraft. I don't think you can compel somebody to do something they wouldn't normally already have within them. Do I think you can energetically influence people? I absolutely think you can, but it has to have already been in there. Yeah. You're just kind of tune forking a little tuning fork, bing, and it resonates out and they kind of react to that, but it has to be within them, right? And so I think that vibration has to already exist in them. I absolutely believe in energy and vibrations and being able to impact those, but I think certain things are just not realistic. I know that was a long-winded answer.
You can't influence somebody to do something that they wouldn't naturally already do.
Yeah, I think you can build off of a spark that is there.
Yeah.
But you can't create a fire out of nowhere.
Yeah. Just like energy. You can't create energy, but you can expand it, grow it.
Cause it to vibrate differently.
Yep. So I'm right there with you. I feel like there's a truth behind witchcraft. I feel like the umbrella is so big and there's, so many areas that come in from pop culture, like the flying and the telepath. But I do feel like with herbal and energetic manifestation that there is a truth behind it and can be tapped into and expanded on.
Well, and I do think that there's a lot of things science hasn't proved yet that do exist that can have a scientific explanation. For example, geosensitivity, like the crystals and the rocks. Like rocks are conductors and energy is real. So I think certain rocks have different metal properties within them and different element properties that can respond differently to heat and light and water and energy. And so I think that's very real, that whole idea of crystal healing has a foundation in science. I think just like anything else, it can be taken on a way different trajectory that just isn't realistic. Like, hey, if I hold this rock, I'm going to heal cancer.
Yeah.
Like, y'all, probably not.
Yeah.
But I do think that certain rocks are conductors and can assist with certain things. I tend to be middle ground on some of it. And I think there's a lot of work that could be done on that in terms of like research to find out. But because I think it gets lumped into the new age hippy dippy mumbo jumbo, it doesn't get the scientific research and acknowledgement that it probably could. Because I think there is some reality in there.
Yeah. There is reality to there because, look at salt. Salt is a rock, and that's one of the natural cleansing products, if you will, of the world. And it's a conductor. Kind of echo what you just said. I think there's a whole area of science that hasn't either had the opportunity to be looked into yet or hasn't had the credibility to learn.
There is a certain level, I think we've discussed this with the ley lines too, a certain level of sensitivity, and maybe it's hereditary witchcraft. Maybe it's not witchcraft at all, but that's just the umbrella term we give it. But there is a sensitivity to rocks. Like I can feel the heat off of rocks. I can feel when a rock has energetic amplification in it. And to me, it feels hot. Like it is on fire hot. If I hand that to a person who's not geosensitive, the rock just feels like a cold rock to them. And then I'm like, whoa, am I crazy? But then I hand it to another person. They're like, wow, why is this rock hot? And it's like, okay, so it's not just me.
Right. I remember actually back when we were trying to pitch our idea to you, you had a rock that you were holding on to, and Kevin was, I don't remember what was going on, but you said, here, Kevin, hold this. And then when you got it back from him, it was just a whole different feel.
I remember he was having like an anxiety moment,
Right.
and I handed it to him, but it felt like his energy was just shaking. And I handed it to him and he held it and he calmed down. But then when I got it back, it's like, oh my gosh, that rock was like on fire.
Right.
Because it's like it's a conductor, I feel like, and it absorbs some of that additional nervous, anxious energy out. Is that real? I don't know. And honestly, this isn't a lifelong thing, and I'm not trying to manifest or make witchcraft happen. I've just embraced along the journey certain things that scared me at first are just natural to me. And I define that now as just a natural connection with the earth. Whether my geosensitivity is something more or less, I don't attribute it. It's just, it is. It just is. And so I accept it and I embrace it.
It's part of who you are. It's your characteristic.
It's my weirdness.
It's your weirdness.
I'm weird.
Let your freak flag fly, as they say.
Freak your flag.
She's an elemental witch.
Oh gosh, I'm not a witch. I hate that. I hate when people call me that. I'm not a witch. Yeah, I sure as hell can't be a green witch because I can't keep plants alive for the life of me. So that puts me automatically out that window.
Yes.
Y'all know where I stand. Give me food.
Give me food.
Kitchen witch.
Kitchen witch.
Don't let him cook for you, John. He just gave us his secrets. He put spells into his cooking.
That makes sense now. Yeah.
I just like rocks. I don't do spells. I don't believe in spells. I don't do spells. No judgment. That's just not about me. I'm not about that life. No spells. Not about that spell life.
And for the record, I do not put spells in my food. I believe in the taste of it, creating the magic within the person that's consuming it.
That was just almost borderline perverse and creepy.
I'm not eating anything.
Where do you fall, John?
I don't know.
I think John's a muggle.
No way. I don't know where I'd fall. I don't know. Maybe an elemental too. I don't know. Like if we were to actually call corners, I think my thing is like actually earth. So, which is kind of crazy.
So do you know what the difference between magic and sorcery is? Sorcery, by definition, a sorcerer is someone with natural magical powers. Witchcraft is actually more of a practice. So it's like a verb, the practice of witches.
That makes sense. Sorcerer Supreme, Doctor Strange. He was a natural sorcerer. Not to get all nerdy.
Can we ever do a podcast without getting nerdy? Like, that's what we
No.
do. That's our charm.
Yes, we are definitely nerdy. We can't even go without mentioning movies, which is fine. But
I feel like sorcery is more of like natural raw power, whereas witchcraft is the practical use of spells and rituals and an application to get something to happen that you can't do without those spells and rituals.
Yeah.
A witch does not necessarily have magical powers.
And going back to Bewitch, I would probably say that she would be a blend of like the practice of witchcraft and sorcery too, because you know,
She had the natural power.
when she would want something, she would just twiddle her nose, and then whatever she wanted happens.
Yeah, I would say she's a witch with sorcery within her because she
Yeah.
has her natural
Yeah, right.
magic, so she doesn't necessarily need spells and rituals, but she did also use spells and rituals.
right.
And Sabrina as well. Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Mhm.
A lot of people have grown to use it interchangeably. So they use sorcery and magic and witchcraft to all mean the same things, and they're not the same thing. In this case, a rose is not a rose.
A rose is a daisy.
A rose is a daisy. A rose is nightshade.
A rose is a tulip.
Do you either of you have any final thoughts on witchcraft or sorcery?
I think I need to get back into it. It was interesting to study for sure.
I think that for those that are listening, if you are practicing any variation of witchcraft or magic, just to be cautious on what you put out into the earth. And that the energy comes from somewhere, whether it be yourself or if you're tying yourself to something else, it's coming from somewhere.
Comes from somewhere.
I have a last thought. Okay, for you guys.
Go for it.
Do you have a favorite movie that is centered around witchcraft? And not including the Harry Potter series. We're not going to include that on this. And you can pick 3 from a horror genre, a non-horror genre, and maybe a TV series. My words are not with me today.
I get what you're saying though.
Rewind. No, I get it too.
You heard. You got me.
We get you. You already know my movie. It's The Craft.
Mhm.
Always got to stick with that. If I'm going for horror, Witchboard had to do with the whole. Yeah.
Witchboard. We're taking.
I
I liked that one.
Yes, that was good. TV show, obviously Bewitched. I mean, come on. Dad watched it, so I grew up watching it and enjoyed it. It was funny. It was great. And seeing it now as an adult, it's a whole new meaning, like we were talking about earlier. But yeah, those are my 3. Ashley, because Kevin's still thinking.
Oh man, this one's a hard one.
That's what she said.
Ah ha ha ha. You know, the house with the clock on the walls was really cute. I liked that as a non-horror film. We still
Good
watch
old
that
Jack
in my
Black.
house. Yeah, like it's cute. It's
Yeah.
fun. I liked it.
That was a good one.
I like the witches.
The Witches.
The original.
The original, not the HBO one.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
I haven't either.
Yeah, I don't watch it. I enjoyed the autopsy of Jane Doe. That was a good one, and I know that was a witchcraft movie.
I think I watched that at one point. I don't remember a lot of it.
It's weird, a lot of like back and forth, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. Blair Witch Project. That was a good one.
Blair Witch is great.
How can I forget about the Blair Witch Project? That one scared the shit out of me. But here's why. It had just come out on DVD, and Lila was like a baby still. So I had rented it, put in my DVD player, and my DVD player had a plug for headphones. So I bring the chair out in the living room, put in my headphones, and I'm sitting there in the dark in front of the TV watching this freaking movie, and I am like freaking out. I keep looking behind me going, what the frick is going on? Like, what the scared the shit out of me. I loved it. And that was back when people thought it was still a real thing. I mean, while it was in theaters, people actually thought the way that they promoted that movie was fantastic.
It was like a little forefather of the found footage genre in mainstream culture. So
Yes.
I like The Last Witch Hunter. I know a lot of people probably didn't like that one, but I enjoyed it with Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun. And Hansel and Gretel with Hawkeye.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, Jeremy Renner.
Yep. I thought that one was fun too.
That was a good one too.
The Brothers Grimm.
Yeah. The first time I didn't enjoy it at all, but watching it again, it was good.
And of course, Twitches.
Oh, Twitches.
Good family, clean fun.
Disney Channel exclusive.
Yeah, super cute. And you can't forget my awesome number one main girl, Ursula.
Ah, yeah.
She's 100% that witch. And of course, Hocus Pocus. Kevin, how could you not mention Hocus Pocus?
Oh my God, Hocus Pocus.
Wow. I have a Hocus Pocus blanket that I use all the time, but I can't remember the movie.
How did I forget Hocus Pocus?
He's doing the Kevin McAllister look from Home Alone right now.
Oh, Hometown. Oh, Hocus Pocus.
Halloween Town.
Halloween Town.
All the fun ones.
That was good, yes.
I think it's funny because most of the witch movies I enjoy, or movies about witchcraft, tend to be like the kid
movies.
ones or the more innocent ones.
Yeah, movies.
Like with the vampire genre, I go all the way hardcore horror. But with the witch genre, I'm like, all right, we have Twitches in Halloween Town and Harry Potter and the Little Mermaid
with Ursula. And
I'm all over the board when it comes to movies. The Crucible was also good.
Oh, yeah.
The Crucible was good.
A drama, but good. The Scarlet Letter. Wait, no, that wasn't. That was just adultery.
That was just
Never
adultery.
mind. I mean, not just, but you know what I mean. It wasn't.
Love spell, but
It wasn't witchcraft. I'm gonna be quiet now. It was set in Puritan, Massachusetts, which is why I associated it. But it was not witchcraft.
I would probably want to have a spell that would. I feel like the thing that I would like to have the most and more of is more time.
To immortality.
Not necessarily. Well, yeah. Now that I'm thinking of it, it's like a whole. That'd be cool. But just more time in like in the day, in the week, in the month, in the year. Just more time to be able to do more and get more done. And
That's practical. What about you, John?
I don't know. I'm lazy. I don't like to exercise. Exercise sucks. So something to get me nice and skinny again. Instantly. None of this workout shit. I love food. So if I got fat again, I could just snap my fingers and boom, I'm skinny again.
I'm gonna change to that.
How about you, Ash?
I'd like to become an immortal muse.
I like that.
I like that.
With that immortality, I would like for it to expand through my entire bloodline.
I dig it. Your wish is my command.
Pada! Abracadabra.
When did you become a genie?
Abracadabra. Houdini Poudini.
What about a weenie? What?
No weenies.
I heard Poondini.
Wow.
I just
Houdini?
And that's hashtag K Daddy's new name.
What's up? This is Poondini from the Dirty South.
Hashtag Poondini. Well, thank you for tuning in to the 3Haunted podcast with your hosts. I'm Ashley.
I'm John Thomas.
And I'm Kevin K. Daddy.
You have any questions or suggestions? Email us at 3hauntedpodcast@gmail.com. Also, don't forget to like us on our social media. Hit that follow button.
Peace out, witches.